Did a video recently on Brian Flores. This is going to talk about the NFL, but I'm not talking sports. Trust me. This is something that is going to, I'm projecting, so I could be wrong. I think could engulf any and every industry, including our country. We need to watch the moves that these, I was going to say, no, we need to watch the moves that are being made. The NFL is showing us what is happening. NFL is a microcosm of the larger issue in America. So if you don't know, I did a video on Brian Flores and the Giants. Brian Flores is suing the NFL alleging racism. The only problem is, at least for me, is that I haven't seen him allege any proof of what's in someone's head or heart, meaning a racist term or flat out saying I'm a racist or something to that effect. I don't have proof. So how is maybe you have a HR lawsuit, but what's race got to do with it? That's what I'm talking about. So Brian Flores, this is now with the Broncos, a different one. He's got all these allegations going out there. His lawsuit, he's saying that when he interviewed with the Broncos, this is crazy. He's saying when he interviewed with the Broncos, that John Elway was disheveled.
You state that in an interview that you had with him, that John Elway and another Broncos official showed up an hour late, looked disheveled. It was obvious to you they had been drinking heavily the night before the interview. You say it became clear they only were interviewing you to fulfill the provisions of the Rooney Rule. What specifically can you remember about that interview?
So I've had 9 interviews with NFL clubs. There's been one interview where anyone was late. And it wasn't me that was late, it was the interviewers.
So the volume might be low, but he's saying I went to an interview and the interviewers were late. Okay, so what? I've even seen tactics where interviewers will be late on purpose to see if someone gets pissed off. How do they adjust to it? They were late. Man, get your ego in check, bruh. An interviewer, he's not the interviewee. He's the interviewer. Now, I'm saying, here's the thing. Here's the other thing about an interview. If you don't like that, you don't need to take the job. You are also interviewing them. So if they're a mess or they're late and you feel some kind of vibe or some kind of way, you can walk out of the interview, or after the interview, even if they offer you the job, you can say, no, thank you. So I don't even know why that came up. Irrelevant.
Were late. That was with the Broncos. I think there was a reason why they were late. I think they were they'd been out the night before. I think that's the reason why.
What made you believe that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but what gave you the impression, if you will, that they had been out drinking the night before?
Well, I mean, when you sit at a table with 5 people who are interviewing you, you know who's, you can tell who's asking questions.
Wait, he asked you, you made an allegation that they were out late the night before. And you're talking about asking questions? Where's the connection?
Who's into the interview and who's not necessarily in the right state, I would say, in that moment. But even then, I would say I put my best foot forward.
This is pure insanity. He just accused them of being out late the night before based on who was interacting during the interview or not. What the hell is that? Ooh, boy, this is a foresight of what's going to happen or what could happen.
And showed why I was a good candidate for that job. I'm always going to do that. But I certainly did not feel like I was taken seriously, and that I was just there as a Rooney.
Vic Fangio.
That's in your head, bro. You can't prove that. He said what he was feeling in his head. You can't prove that you were there only because you were black. That's in your head. It could be true. It could not be true. The justice system is going to have to make sure that that can't fly. That can't go on. He has no proof.
Ultimately was hired for that job and was subsequently fired a month ago. You are aware, of course, that the Broncos have released a statement emphatically denying the allegations, giving specifics about what time the interview began, what time it ended, where it took place. They say they have notes. What is your reaction to that?
I deal in truth. That's my reaction. I deal in truth. That's my reaction. I deal in truth. Honesty, integrity is important to me, and hopefully we
That is critical race theory, a tenet of critical race theory. It's called the voice of color, and the voice of color is not to be questioned, or it's also called his story, kind of a play off of history. The club says, I'm not saying that he's wrong. Maybe they were out the night before, but the club says, we have notes. Here's when it started. Here's the time. And what did he say? My truth is my truth. That is critical race theory.
There's a day where we find out the truth on that.
Once again, to be clear, there's no question in your mind about your recollection of this, regardless of what they say.
I'm going to go on here to explain where I'm going with this. People on Twitter play too much. Just had a couple jokes here. So here's the thing. John Elway has been known in the league to be, that's a rumor. I don't know. Allegedly, not from me. People think he's an alcoholic. So people on Twitter, they want to joke. Here's the other thing. Remember the Kente cloth 2020? This is John Elway, John Mara at their next press conference. Yeah, okay. You know what? I do wish Twitter had a algorithmic option where you could say, here's the topic. I want to see the gifs and the jokes. Just the gifs and the jokes for the topic. The John Elway denied it. He said if he appeared disheveled, it was because, so it looks like he might have been disheveled. I don't know. But he's like, if I was disheveled, it was because I had flown through the middle of the night, yada, yada, yada. Started with Colin Kaepernick. It started with Colin Kaepernick when he took that knee. That's when this all happened. That's when so this moment when Colin Kaepernick took that knee, that's when critical theory entered the NFL. And this is going to enter all walks of life, all businesses. That was the day, that was the time it entered the NFL. And his girlfriend, Nessa, was knee deep in critical theory way back then. I didn't even know what it was. Evolution of Colin Kaepernick. This Brian Flores thing is the evolution of it. Colin Kaepernick compared NFL tactics to slavery in the Netflix special. Why would he do that? Let's keep going. Well, you know what? He also got a lot of press off of it. All this. He gets paid to pretend to be a victim. That's why he's got all this ebony shine and got a lot of privilege for this victimhood. So that's the guy we treat as a victim, but the social justice warrior. And then now we have a black former NFL GM comparing him to Colin Kaepernick. So that's adding to the flames of the Colin Kaepernick stuff. Brian Flores compares the NFL to a plantation, just like Colin Kaepernick compared the NFL to slavery. They're right on the same way. This video here is going to be about now I'm going to transition to what did Colin Kaepernick and critical theory set the NFL up for? I didn't use the spoon analogy. She did.
The analogy that I use is using a cup of coffee. We've all had a cup of coffee. We stir that cup of coffee with a spoon. I liken the spoon to a racist, right? As you're stirring that coffee, it creates a current in the cup of coffee. And I liken that current to racism. Racists create the current of racism. If you take a white marshmallow and you drop it in the coffee.
I'm going to bring this back because when she says racist, I don't want you to think about a real like a real classical racist from the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s. I want you to think about me. You watching this channel right now. I want you to think about if you are pro freedom convoy, you are a racist. So the word racist is the same as misinformation. It's the same as white supremacy. It's the same as right wing, fringe. Don't think about racist in the classical form. That's not what she means.
Current in the cup of coffee. And I liken that current to racism. Racists create the current of racism. If you take a white marshmallow and you drop it in the coffee, what is that marshmallow going to do? It's going to go with that flow. It's going to continue in that current. For all those who say, I'm not racist, that's how I liken those people to that marshmallow floating in the current. You're not.
So if you're trying to be neutral, like Martin Luther King Jr., like judge people on the content of their character and say, everybody has their biases, but I'm not racist, I'm neutral, you are lumped in with the racists.
Not doing anything to stop the tides of racism. You're just really going with the flow of the racism, right?
And anti-racist would do what?
Anti-racist would stop that, interrupt and disrupt the current of racism and send this dynamic in a different direction. An analogy that I use is.
So that's what if you listen to them, they will tell you what the goal is. All you have to do is listen to them. The goal is power. The spoon represents those who have power, who disagree with her. And her goal is to use critical theory to take control of the spoon. Now there's different layers to this. They never go after institutionalized power. They never go after Nancy Pelosi, put the kente cloth on. They don't go after Joe Biden, who's literally been associated with racists, has literally said things that you could call racist. All the little roaches on my leg, it was the craziest thing I ever heard. Never explained what he meant. They never talk about that. Imagine if Joe Biden is so much for black women, why wouldn't he just resign and let a black woman, Kamala Harris, take over for president? There's never been a black woman president before. Maybe that's how the transition will happen. Who knows? But it's about power. The same thing that happens in the NFL is going to happen here. Ibram X. Kendi, famous critical race theory, same thing that's happening in the NFL. This is, I think, the next step for the NFL. Because even if they settle with this, they're going to have a problem. They have a problem that's going to be there no matter what. Ibram X. Kendi proposed to fix the original sin of racism. Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment of the Constitution to enshrine two guiding principles. Racial inequality is evidence of racist policy. So basically what he's saying is what Brian Flores is saying is evidence of racism. The NFL has 70% players who are black. There's not 70% coaches who are black. That is racism. He wants that in the Constitution as an amendment, and that different racial groups are equals. The amendment would make different racial groups equals. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold. So he's talking about numbers. So he's talking about, hey, it could be a constitutional amendment that any company over 100 employees or any company period, you have to have 50% diverse representation in the company or whatever it looks like. He's talking about hard numbers in the Constitution. Ideas by public. So he's flexing on public officials, as well as power over racist ideas by public officials. So what he's proposing is somebody who's over basically Congress. So it would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism. He already got an acronym for it, DOA, comprised of formerly trained experts on racism, probably Ibram X. Kendi, Nicole Hannah-Jones, and others. They would be responsible for, get this, pre-clearing all local, state, and federal public policies. Did you hear what I said that he's proposing? This is a man that Joe Biden would never speak out against, would support completely. The DOA, Department of Anti-Racism, would be responsible for pre-clearing all local, state, and federal public policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequity. Pre-clear local. This is insane. Same thing that's going to happen so after the NFL gets through this whole Brian Flores thing, I wouldn't be surprised Jay-Z doesn't have, I don't think Jay-Z has a title. I don't know if it's Jay-Z or somebody else. they will be, because the NFL has to deflect. Because if Brian Flores gets a settlement, then there's going to be a lot of other black people saying, or diverse people saying, you did me wrong because of this. So they need to divert that to, hey, we've got a DOA in the NFL. And pretty soon you're going to have a DOA in every company. You're going to have one to handle the social credit score, the ESG. The DOA would be empowered with disciplinary tools. This is, are you listening to this? This is his proposal. Dead serious. I don't know if it will happen or not, but this is a dead serious proposal. The DOA, the Department of Anti-Racism, would be empowered with disciplinary tools. That's scary as hell. To wield over against policymakers and public officials who do not voluntarily change their racist policies and ideas. And you know what they call the Georgia laws. You know they would be over Marjorie Taylor Greene, any America First candidate. Will this happen? I don't know. But we got to make sure it doesn't. Eric Smith says they gain power through claiming powerlessness and using the institution as a third part to intervene. Brilliant. So the quid pro quo is Brian Flores and others. We support you, Joe. We support you, Kamala. We down with you. As long as you let us flex on these organizations and get power. There's that. I think there's an unspoken quid pro quo. So you say, why would people buy into this? I support Joe Biden and I feel like I get power. What's going to happen is you're going to have to find a way. That's why you have all these different made up terms and stuff coming up. And thank you for the super chat, Eric. Is because you're going to have to find yourself into that diverse crowd. You can't be just a white male anymore. You just can't be a white female anymore. You have to subscribe to the ideology. Craziness. Bomani Jones is, so you're going to see celebrities supporting this. It's going to be an all-out frontal attack, not just from people inside, but from celebrities.
What changes here, Bo? What has to change? What can change? What won't change?
White people. Like, I just don't know why people try to make this far more complex than it is. What's the problem? White people. Now, not every single individual white person. No. But in the macro and the aggregate, who are the ones that are making these decisions? White people. Who are the ones that won't change their decision making? White people. Who are the ones that only do anything in a different way when it comes to these matters at the threat of litigation? White people. So I need to ask y'all, what is it that can change? Y'all the ones that know these white people. Y'all the ones that be hanging out with these white people. Y'all the ones that know the ones that pretend to be such good people and then make all the same decisions as everybody else. So I don't have that answer there.
Oh, yeah. Just mask off. That's the Brian Flores. That's the Colin Kaepernick. But Monty Jones has a great show. I haven't listened to him in years. He probably went over to the woke side. Clearly, he went over to the woke side. It was funny that the NFL thought playing the Black National Anthem was going to cover this. Y'all got played. Y'all put the Black National. It's a beautiful song. Don't get me wrong. I love Lift Every Voice and Sing. But y'all thought you were going to play it before every game and that y'all were going to be good, right? No. You heard her talk about the spoon. Until they get control of the spoon, you're not going to be good. You bought into the Black Lives Matter. They went off, got mansions and cribs, and they want that spoon from you. They coming for you. NFL owners. It had nothing to do with race. It's using race to leverage it. This is my face. I'm going to end with this. While they are out here doing it, this is how I'm looking at them. Do you remember this scene from Star Wars? This is how I'm looking at them.
I don't think the system works.
How would you have it work?
We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the best interest of all the people, and then do it.
That's exactly what we do. The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
By whom? Who's gonna make them?
I don't know. Someone.
You?
Of course not me.
But someone.
Someone wise.
Sounds an awful lot like a dictatorship to me.
Well, if it works.
So that's how she looked at him when he took the mask off. Let me know what you think.